Okay. Thanks for taking care of that, Elizabeth. Okay, guys, welcome to our information session. We're trying a little something new, doing it in the middle of the day, hopefully reach a different population. So my name's Lindsay. I am the admissions coordinator for the behavioral science programs. And I've worked at HBU for 4 years, almost 4 years. And I recognize some of your names, so it's good to see you guys again. So we're going to try to keep the session at about an hour. So we have a good show for you today. We're going to have Dr. Cook. He is in charge of the counseling programs and marriage and family therapy. Then we have Dr. Frederick, who's going to talk about the psychology program specifically. And then we also have a student joining us. Christian Webster is in our Christian counseling program. So she is going to be able to provide some insight on what it's like being a grad student at HBU. So after the little presentations from the professors, we'll do a little mini Q&A, and you can ask some questions in the chat. And then we'll do a Q&A again at the end, just to make sure you guys get all the info you need. And we are recording this, so we'll send out the recording if you think you missed something, so that you can go back and get the answer that way. And then, of course, you could always contact me directly for more information. So it's a lot of information to cover because there's so many programs within behavioral sciences, and it's going to be broad information. So if you have a specific, like, nuanced question, we'll do our best to get to it, but it might need some follow-up. But with that being said, let's get started. So Dr. Cook, if you would be willing to take over and tell us about the counseling programs.
Well, welcome all. I am the chair of the counseling department. So I am going to share my screen. I've got a little informational PowerPoint I have put together here. And let's see if I can move it to slide share. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, yes. We're good. So as I said, I'm the chair of the counseling department. So we have several degrees, several programs in our area. So I'm going to represent each one. But one of the things I want to do is really kind of inform you of the licensure process in the state of Texas. And the reason is because I want you to have a realistic perspective of that process, because all of our programs, all but one actually, lead to licensure. So I'll try to make this succinct as much as I can. So here's the licensure process. So you complete your graduate program here at Houston Baptist University, whichever one that is. And I'm going to go into those in just a minute here. That takes, realistically, if you do it full time, about 2.5 years. If you're doing it part time, it doubles. Okay, so it can take up to 5 years. Then once you graduate, you submit your application, you take and pass the state exams after graduation. If you pass those exams, then they grant you a temporary associate license. And what that means is you are then qualified to begin counseling under supervision. You're being paid to do so. You have a job, a real job, and you're being paid to do counseling. But it's an associate license at that point. And so that's after you pass the exam. Once you're granted that associate license, you still have to do, for the state of Texas, 3,000 hours under supervision, which can take anywhere between 2 to 4 years. So that just takes a while to do. If you're doing it full time, you can usually get those in pretty quickly. And then the final step in the process is, once you get those 3,000 hours in, you notify the state, and if everything looks good, they grant you full licensure at that process, at that point. And so if you're looking at this realistically, the soonest that this could take you is really about 4 to 4.5 years. But it also could go on the longer end, depending on your certain circumstances. So if, it could go and maybe as much as 9 years to achieve full licensure. So having said that, let me jump ahead. And so Lindsay, I'm going to depend on you maybe to, if there are questions in the chat, if you can just let me know.
Okay.
And we'll do a Q&A at the end. So, yeah. So let me mention our program. So first of all, there's the MA in Christian Counseling. It's 72 hours, and it's residential only at this point. And this degree program prepares students for careers in Christian and secular organization. And it meets the requirements for licensure as a licensed professional counselor associate. And so that's the MA in Christian Counseling. And so if you're interested, and particularly in working in a Christian environment, that may be the one that you want to do. We also have another degree, which is the MA in Christian Psychology. Again, it's a 72-hour program. Right now, it's residential only. And again, it prepares students for careers in Christian and secular organizations. And it meets the curricular requirements for licensure in the state of Texas as an LPA. That's a licensed psychological associate. We're very blessed in that the state of Texas does license at a master's level in psychology if you meet their requirements. There are only a handful of other states that do, but Texas is one of those states. So you could do everything that anybody else could do in terms of their mental health licensures. So that's the MA in Christian Psychology. The MA in Clinical Mental Health Counseling is a 60-hour program. It's both residential and online, and it prepares students for careers in secular organizations largely. It meets curricular requirements as a licensed professional counselor associate as well. And the MA in Marriage and Family Therapy, a 60-hour program. It's both residential and online again, and again, prepares students for careers in secular organizations. It meets curricular requirements for licensed marriage and family therapist associate. So if you want to work primarily counseling couples, counseling families, this would be the one pretty much that you would want to do. So we also offer a Master of Arts in Human Services. It's a 30-hour program. It's online only, and it prepares students for a career largely within a secular environment. It's not license eligible. It doesn't meet the requirements for licensure in any state. And so if you're looking to maybe advance in human services, maybe you have a job in that right now, and you're looking to move up in terms of pay grade and maybe in terms of administrative leadership, this might be a good option. But if you're looking to be licensed, you would not want to do that degree. So, and speaking of these degree programs, a couple of things just to let you know is that our Master of Arts in Marriage and Family Therapy, if you do that residentially, you probably will end up needing to take some of the marriage and family therapy courses online. It's a smaller program right now. And so it's a bit of a hybrid program. Most of the courses are residential, but there are a few courses that right now that we do ask students to take online. So I want to just be aware of that. Also, all of our programs are designed for licensure in the state of Texas. So if you're in another state or you want to become licensed in another state, we cannot guarantee that we meet all of those requirements. We would be happy, excuse me, to sit down with you and compare what your state requires versus what we offer. And usually we can meet most requirements, but there may be a course or two that you might have to take to complete further requirements. So that's pretty much what we offer in counseling. And so if you're interested, yeah, any questions?
There haven't been any questions in the chat, and we are do Q&A again at the end. So if you come up with something, we can do that at the end as well.
Okay. Let me mention about program accreditation, because I know that was one of the questions earlier. So the university as a whole is accredited. We have everything you need. When you graduate from our program, you have everything you need for licensure in the state of Texas. That's not an issue. In some states, there are a few states that do require graduation from a KCREP accredited program. And we are not KCREP accredited. However, what we do is we map our courses to KCREP standards just to ensure that we're covering everything that needs to be covered. But we are not KCREP accredited. So if you're in a state that does require graduation from a KCREP accredited program, we would not be able to help you to achieve that. So be aware of that. But again, we do map our courses to KCREP standards. So.
Perfect, thank you. And we did get a question in the chat, and Dr. Frederick went ahead and answered that, but I'll say it out loud for everyone. It says, in Texas, are LPAs cleared to counsel? And yes, they are. And she might, if you want to expound on that, anyone, go for it. But yes, there is counseling component, right, to the LPA.
Yep, exactly. And even with the LPA, even here in Texas, once you do that 3,000 hours, once you get that first, you get the LPA license. After those 3,000 hours, it's really essentially 3 years. You are cleared to practice independently. The only difference is that you will retain the title of licensed psychological associate at that point, and that's just to distinguish you from those who have a doctorate in psychology, and they would be LPs, licensed psychologists. So you would remain a licensed psychological associate, but you could still do, everything that you needed to do to practice independently.
Okay, and one more question before we move on. So for the online MFT program, or I guess even the clinical mental health counseling program, are there any on-campus requirements?
There are, yes. We have a couple of residential components right now as part of our coursework. I think there are 3 in the licensed clinical mental health program and 2 in the MAMFT program. And so that means you have to come to campus for those days. And there's training that has to be done face-to-face. So it's usually not more than a week at most, but that's the current arrangement. Okay,
perfect. I know I said we were going to move on, but I did see one more question that I don't know the answer to. Otherwise, I would just respond. But so if someone does the Christian Psych program, could that also fulfill the requirement for LPC, or is it different enough that it's like only LPA? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's different enough, and the state has different requirements enough for those. There are a number of courses that we do share between those programs, but there's enough distinction that you wouldn't be able to test for the other license.
Okay, so it's not like one program can get you like dual license type thing.
No.
Okay. Okay, good. Any questions we missed, we'll hit up at the end, but let's keep moving. So thank you, Dr. Cook. And now we're going to transition to Dr. Frederick to talk about the more of the psychology specific programs.
Okay, and I'll stop sharing.
Sorry, I don't have anything to show you except me. But I don't have as many programs as Dr. Cook has either. Basically, I'm in charge of 2 programs, either the Master of Arts in Psychology, which we call the MAP-Gen, the General Psychology. And that's a short 36-hour program that kind of your finale is to create a thesis. So there's research orientation there. You find a topic that is interesting to you that has to do with the behavioral sciences, and that's what you're working on. And that's your culmination. This is a degree that does not lead to any licensure. it prepares you basically to go on to a doctorate if you're interested in a doctorate program. And then the other program that I'm helping with is the Master of Arts in Psychology Specialist in School Psychology degree. And this is a 60-hour degree that leads to licensure as a school psychologist. This program, with a little bit of extra work, I think one extra class, and choosing a supervisor who's actually a licensed psychologist, you could also get LPA licensure. Okay. And as you kind of look at the coursework and the programs and things, you have your Christian counseling and your Christian psychology and so on. You will have faith integrated into every course that you take here at HBU. It's an important part of who we are. You do not have to be a Christian. However, all of your faculty, all your teachers will be Christians, and will be supporting you in faith and helping you to answer questions about how to be a counselor in a secular world and implement your faith and stay strong in your faith and so on. I guess the school psychology program, I'll go back to that. Sorry, I got sidetracked. The school psychology program is basically 2 years of full-time study in the academic work, followed by a full-time internship. And that's a big part of that program, is that final year you are at a school working as a school psychologist intern and under the supervision of someone from the school, but also enrolled and under the supervision of someone here at HBU to support you to be successful in that program. So that's the two programs that we have in general, not in the counseling program. So questions for me?
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can.
Okay, so the master, you say the MAP leads, it's more or less if you want to go on to get a doctorate in psychology.
Right.
Okay, so that means you'd have to transfer to another school that does doctorate.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we have one doctorate program. It is actually a doctor of education, and it's in executive leadership. Tell me if I get it wrong, Lindsay. It's a big long.
That's like executive educational leadership, or there's one I think in special ed. But yeah, they're definitely education. Yeah,
right, but we have the EDD in executive leadership in mental health.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So if you're still interested in mental health, but you're not concerned about licensure, because that one does not lead to licensure. However, you would be, it's a leadership degree in which you might be the leader over a counseling agency or something. You're not interested so much in providing mental health services, but you're very passionate about mental health services, then that might be a good degree for you. So did I answer your question, or was there more to it? Sorry.
Well, no, there's not really more to it. It's that like my ultimate goal is to get a doctorate in psychology. So I think the MAP program would fit. So if I were to move on to a doctorate in psychology, I think with those programs offer licensure at a later date, maybe if needed.
The MAP general, the short 36-hour does not lead to licensure. However, the coursework can be transferred over to like the Christian psychology program, which leads to licensure as an LPA, or the school psychology if you were interested in being a school psychologist. Yeah.
And one, I didn't care, and
go ahead.
Sorry to interject here, but just to mention, I didn't say this earlier, but the Master of Arts in Christian Psychology and the Master of Arts in Christian Counseling, we do require that you be a Christian for those two programs, obviously, because the title and the training in those programs is thoroughly Christian. So, yeah, so yeah, and directly related to your question, is, there are plans that are being discussed, but at this point, nothing has been brought to fruition as far as a doctorate yet here, specifically in psychology at the university. So you would need to transfer to somewhere.
Okay, thanks. And then in the chat, Jessica does have a question. Jessica, you can either unmute and ask your question, or if you want to chat, that's fine too.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I did happen to come in last minute. I do apologize, but I was listening in where we can get licensure in school psychology. Sorry, not school psychology, but like as a school psychologist. I was wondering if the internship for your final, I really came in for that last bit, so I wasn't sure. You needed to be in an internship in your undergraduate, or is that for the master's program in order for Master's of Arts in School Psychology to get that license in school psychology? So I wasn't sure if that was a before thing or if that was like a for the program thing.
That is your final year in the program, that
Okay,
you will be
okay.
placed in a school and working and in a school. May or
Gotcha.
may not get very much payment. There are some unpaid internships and there are some minimally paid internships, and there are some
Right.
that are pretty decent.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That was my questions. I'm very much interested in that program specifically for HBUs. So I wanted to check in, eventually send an email about applying for that.
Okay, I will put my email address in the chat box. So if you want to reach out to me directly.
Thank you so much.
Great questions. What other questions do you have?
There is a question asking for the differences between LPA and LPC. I'm guessing in like scope of practice type stuff. Can you guys explain maybe what the difference is?
Sure. So LPA, you have more training in assessment. And typically the idea is that you work with more serious mental disorders in terms of scope of practice, whereas LPC, you have less training in assessment, but more actually in counseling, more training in counseling per se. And the idea is that you're working more along the lines of depression and anxiety disorders, marital problems, adjustment problems in life and things like this. So there is some distinction in terms of scope of practice.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And I guess there is a specific, it says, the guy who asked the question, he's interested in writing, maybe on a more popular level, not necessarily like academic. Any recommendations between LPA or LPC?
No, as far as writing, it's not. For our programs in the counseling area, that includes the Christian psychology program, we don't require a thesis, so we're not asking you to, develop, we don't have a heavy writing requirement as much as the MAP program would, for example. So
Perfect, thank you. And then Dr. Frederick, no one has asked this, but it's a question I get a lot. If for like people wanting to do the LSSP program that have a master's in education or something similar, will those classes potentially transfer in?
Yes, they will. If you already have a master's and some of your coursework corresponds in some way, like you have taken theories of counseling or you have taken human growth and development at the master's level, those sorts of classes. So you could look at the degree plan and kind of make a guess as far as which classes might line up. And then we will accept up to a maximum of 30 credit hours. It's a 60-hour program, so 50% can be transferred in from a degree that you have already received elsewhere. And we are right now there is a serious shortage of school psychologists. Okay, every school district in the Houston area has one or more positions unfilled at the moment in school psychology. So we are really trying to facilitate. And if you've taken human growth and development at the master's level, there's no reason for you to take it again with our slant on it or whatever. You know, you understand the basics of human growth and development, then we're going to facilitate getting you into the school system as quickly as we can. So we have a lot of educational diagnosticians who transfer in and are able to then complete the coursework in half the time.
Right, perfect, thank you. Okay, and then with the LSSP program, that one is residential only, correct?
It is. We do allow you, because the counseling program is online, and there is some overlap. If there is space and the online program has not filled up, like they have a human growth and development class, we have a human growth and development class. There's a lot of overlap there. So if there's space in the online program, then we do allow you to take a few courses, but you had best plan on being on campus.
Okay, perfect. And all of our grad classes are in the evenings, sort of one day a week, the Monday through Thursday time slot. So there's not really weekends or Friday classes. So it would be in the evening. So a lot of people do choose to work full-time or part-time during the day, and then we'll come to class in the evening. So if you haven't done grad school before, we wanted to invite a student to share from her perspective, especially because she is also a working professional and doing school and balancing that world. So Christian's going to speak to y'all a little bit about her experience as a student.
Awesome. Hi guys, happy lunch hour. I hope you're all able to get something delicious to eat after you get all this information. My name is Christian. I am in the Master of Arts in Christian Counseling program. That's the larger 72-hour program. I also have the privilege to work at HBU, which has some convenience, right? Like I work and go to school at the same place, but HBU has become kind of a second home for me. I did my undergrad here as well. And I just keep coming back because the people are so wonderful and the education is top notch. So a little bit about my journey to the MACC program. I actually did my undergrad in film. So I'm a big lover of storytelling, our journey as human beings and all that entails. After I graduated, Houston is in LA, exactly. So there weren't big movies that needed to be made here. I worked kind of doing some clerical work for a local law firm in a very secular environment, the 8 to 5. And I was just, it wasn't working for me. I needed a purpose. I needed to do something that I believed in. And when I reflected on what I loved and that it was storytelling and the therapeutic aspects of watching a really good movie or having a great conversation, that just drew me towards what I felt God was calling me to, and that was helping other people, work through their own personal stories. So the Gideon Institute is a fantastic place to combine that Christian, theology and the modern psychological practice. So it is both. You're not going to get, just biblical counseling, and you're not going to get, just a secular approach to therapy. It really is more than integrated here. And that's what drew me to the program. I pulled up all of the degree plans and looked at all the course requirements and just decided that the MACC was what I wanted to learn and what would prepare me best to help other people. I am doing it part-time. I think there was a question about, the timeline, and Dr. Cook touched on that as well. So I am looking at 5 years to get the program done. For some of you, that might not be practical. So you may be looking at full-time for 2 years just to accelerate the process. I've personally found that it's really beneficial to just sit with the content longer. And so 5 years for me is better, in my personal opinion. It does get daunting when you think about the hours required for licensure afterwards, but it's, you're in it for the long haul, and it's a wonderful process. The last thing that I really wanted to touch on was just the difference between coming to school at HBU and maybe at a larger university. It's not just the faith aspect, right? It's really more about how the faculty view students as individual people. And that was something that I appreciated, in my undergraduate experience, and even more so now to a certain extent, is that my professors see me as a person with individual needs, individual goals, and they really tailor, your educational experience to help you flourish in the way that's best for you. So you could go to a lot of other schools, but if what you're looking for is the integration of faith and learning, and a personal approach to education, I think that's what you'll find here.
Perfect. Thank you, Christian. And yeah, we've had a few questions come in the chat specific more to the academic side of things. Does anyone have any questions for Christian as a student and what it's like to be a student?
Come on, surely somebody wants to know how hard the professors are, or how hard the classes are.
Yeah, how much time do you spend outside of class on, homework?
That's a good question. I think a rule I heard one time is 3 hours of work for every 1 hour of class. That's going to be different for everyone. I also work part-time on the weekends because I don't do enough. So you should expect to spend, I'm in 6 hours. I probably spend 4 to 5 hours a week on reading and material, and then additional time on assignments and papers and things like that.
Good.
And it looks different once you get into your practicum and internship courses, because those just have more time demands. So practicum, you can expect to do probably about 10 hours a week just on practicum alone. For internship, higher expectations. So you're probably looking at 18 to 20 hours per week, just in terms of time alone.
And in all the programs, I'm pretty sure all classes, so Christian said she was in 6 hours, so that's 2 classes, because all of our classes are three credit hours. So yeah, she's doing that 2 classes at a time. Okay. Okay, we said, okay, you mentioned 5 years. Sorry, let me read the question. Okay, so if someone did want to go faster, so Christian's doing a slower 5-year plan. I think 2.5 years. I don't think you can really get it done in 2 years. 2.5 years is kind of the fastest you can do, and I think that works out to be about 3 classes a semester and then we have classes fall, spring, and summer. So you would need to enroll in the summer to finish in that 2.5 year timeline. Is that correct, Dr. Cook or Frederick?
Yes, that's correct. And the reason that it's more realistically 2.5, although, if you think about it, if you took 12 hours a semester, you could get it done in 2 years. But there are certain courses that you have to have taken before you can start your practicum. And you can't do your internship without doing the practicum. So that's why it's more realistically 2.5 years.
Okay. And then 4 classes, 12 hours is the max that you can take in grad school.
Right.
Okay, good questions. All right, keep the questions coming. I am going to go back to some of the more academic questions. And then, okay, so yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about licensing, LPA, LPC. So if someone is interested, like they want licensed, but they also want, you know, a PhD or doctoral program, what is, you know, like any advice on like, do they do the licensing program first, or do they do the shorter MAP, get onto their doctoral program, and that's when they would do the counseling licensing component? Does that make sense?
If you're interested in the licensure, I mean, master's level licensure, you don't need to take the MapGen. You would just choose the Christian psychology or the counseling or whatever. But if you really want to be a licensed psychologist and get your PsyD or a PhD in psychology and work towards licensure, then the MAP general, the 36-hour program is ideal for that, because it teaches you how to do research, gives you experience to show the PhD programs or the PsyD program, hey, I know how to do research. I'm an accomplished researcher. I understand statistics, analysis, writing in an academic manner, and so on. So you know, we're preparing you to go on to do more if that is your desire.
Okay, good. And then there's one question that I don't really understand because I'm not in the discipline. It says, is the secular training heavy in cognitive talk therapy model?
Well, so cognitive therapy is a secular approach to working with human persons and human problems. And so what we do, the way that we approach that, so we have a two-pronged approach in the way that we train. Now, this is particularly true in the MACP and MACC approaches. In the MAC-MHC approaches, we do this to some degree too. But what we do is we teach you how to think Christianly about all of the secular therapy approaches and to use discernment and how to be implicitly Christian in working with non-Christian clients with those approaches. So yes, it is a secular approach. We also teach in the MACC and MACP programs some very distinctively Christian approaches as well, particularly in working with Christian clients. So, I mean, the American population still, over 60% of the American population still asserts that they're Christian. So it makes sense that you be trained in that.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Rhea, for your question. And then Tiffany, are you still on? You said you had a couple of questions. Yeah, you can either chat those or ask.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my question is, I'm kind of interested in a few different areas with counseling. I'm doing the clinical mental health counseling, but I'm also interested in maybe doing school counseling and later down the line, marriage and family therapy. Would my degree in clinical mental health counseling allow me to do both of those things, or would I have to take additional classes to qualify for school counseling and marriage family therapy?
So for school counseling, there are some additional courses that you would have to take. There's at least 2. There might be, I think there's only 2. Isn't that right, Karen? Dr. Frederick?
The intro to school counseling and then the advanced,
advanced.
counseling, and then the internship would have to be an
Yes.
extra internship. Plus you have to be a teacher for 2 years. You have to have
Correct.
a teaching record where you have taught for 2 years.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
But marriage and family therapy, I'll let Dr. Cook address.
Yeah, marriage and family therapy, as far as you would have to do almost a separate degree program. There would be a little bit of overlap in terms of the counseling core in marriage and family therapy, but then there's another 12 to 15 hours that's completely different to qualify for licensure as a marriage and family therapist.
Okay, thank you.
But as an LPC, you are qualified to work with marriage and families. You're
Sure.
not limited in your scope of practice to only individuals.
Yeah.
But you would, I mean, that's, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and vice versa. It's just that you're better trained if you're
Mhm.
marriage. My licensure is marriage and family therapist. So you're better trained to work with marriages and families. If you're MAMFT or LMFT, than you are if you're LPC.
Okay,
But you
thank
can
you.
do it both ways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then we did have the COVID protocols question. So I think the plan is for the fall to be back in person. And so, you know, during COVID, we've done some interesting things to creatively provide what students need, but the plan is for the fall to be back in person, and we won't offer the sort of virtual option, virtual attendance. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And
So
interesting is-
if your
interesting is the
application
nice
requires
part.
an interview, the interviews are still done virtually, and our like orientation and things might be done virtually, but when it comes to class, I think you'll be back in person, which we're looking forward to.
And it's blessing to be in class in person again. You know, it really, I miss it.
Yep.
Okay, and then we'll do a few more questions and then wrap up. So Dr. Cook, if you would answer, what if someone has a certificate in biblical counseling? Would any courses potentially transfer? It's from American Association of Biblical Counselors.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a good question. The issue is those courses have to be taken at a graduate level. So they have to be graduate level courses from an accredited institution. So I'm not sure if you took them from ACBC, if they're graduate level, or I'm not sure if ACBC is an accredited institution. So that's the issue.
And then do we have a timeline or any potential guess about doctoral, like behavioral science doctoral programs at HBU?
It takes at least a year I would say at least 2 years, basically, because we have to determine what we want to offer. We have to create the program. It has to go through our accreditation agency and get approval. The 2 years would be the absolute fastest, probably more likely 3. About when you're finishing up your master's.
Yeah. And do you guys work with students who then, maybe Dr. Frederick, you see this more potentially with MAP students, but have you seen students transition to then a PhD program from HBU? And like, you know, I'm guessing faculty will write references and help guide them and things like that.
Yes. Basically kind of discuss what they're interested in. Is it, you know, the neurological? Is it the counseling? What exactly are they interested in? And kind of look through the programs with them, what to look at, who their mentors might be at the doctoral level, and definitely. So that's another benefit of the smaller classes and getting to know your professors. And you know, I'm happy to write a recommendation for you because I know who you are, and I know I can support you.
Okay, good.
There's also the option of actually from counseling, you can go on to do a doctorate in counselor ed if you want to teach counseling. You have that option as well.
And then if someone if someone does the clinical mental health counseling program and is an LPC for a while and then wants to go on for like a PhD or something more in psychology, is that compatible? Do we know?
Not as compatible. It's not unheard of. But generally they want you to have taken your master's level coursework in psychology.
There are PhD programs specifically for counseling. Good.
Yes. Well, they're EDD programs is what they are.
Oh, yes, of course.
I
Okay,
don't know about the psychology side, but if you become an LPC, after you have worked 5 years as an LPC, you can take one more course and become an LPC supervisor, and then you take interns under you and they pay you while you supervise them.
Yes.
good, good.
Because when you're actually an associate, you're paying someone to be your supervisor. And so stick around and you'll get paid.
Yeah, full circle.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for participating. Once we get done, like I said, we'll have a recording of this. If you want to go back and watch anything, I'll go through the chat. And if we missed any questions, I'll send you a follow-up email or connect you with one of the professors to help answer your question. And again, some of you are in different phases and stages of the application process. If you haven't applied, we hope that you'll apply. If you're still submitting documents, get those in the next week. We're still taking applications for the summer term, which starts in June, or the fall term, which begins the end of August. But you'll need to act quickly. And then, if you've already been accepted, congrats, and I hope we can get you registered for classes soon. Contact us if you have any other questions. We'll be doing this again in a few more months, but we're glad you participated.
I have
And
a question, or actually a comment.
oh, yeah.
We are moving our MAP general, the 36-hour program, we are moving that online. So in the fall, we will have some courses online. So that will be an all online program in the next year.
Okay. So online only. So it's not like they have the option, but online only.
Mhm.
Okay.
Which actually helps the school psychology students who
Mhm.
want to take courses that are in that program that will transfer in. So there will be
Perfect.
increasing options of online, but skills, courses, we won't put those online. We want to work with you on skills. So.
Okay, that's good info. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Really, thank you all. Good
Thank
to meet
you.
you all. Feel free to email me with questions.